Good morning. It's great to be with you today. My name is Lance and I'm the Archdeacon for Waitotara. And it's great to be able to join you this Sunday between Christmas and New Year's, where a lot of us are on holiday, but the faithful are at church on Sunday. So I'm glad to be with you. Hopefully this morning you've just heard Luke's Gospel, chapter 2, verses 41 to 52. This passage recounts a significant moment in Jesus' early life, his visit to the temple as a boy of just 12, where he amazes the teachers with his wisdom. It's not a passage we hear much of outside of the Advent season, but I think this passage offers profound insights for us today about priorities, about growth, about spiritual identity. So, Luke tells us every year Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the festival of the Passover. Verse 41. This annual pilgrimage was a testament, really, to Mary and Joseph's piety and their devotion, underscoring the culture that Jesus grew up in, their obedience to the Jewish traditions. At 12, Jesus would have been just on the brink of Jewish adulthood, a phase marked by greater religious responsibility. Yet something unusual happens. As we heard, after the festival, Mary and Joseph begin their return journey, assuming Jesus is with their group. When they realise he's missing, they search for 3 agonising days and eventually find him, not skiving off or just mucking around with the other 12-year-old boys, but in the temple, engaged in deep discussion with his teachers. His response to their concern? Why were you searching for me? Didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house? This simple statement from Jesus shows us he is beginning to understand his divine purpose. While Mary and Joseph maybe still viewed his place as within their family, Jesus is beginning to orient their thinking towards his divine calling. As parents, we have this tension, right? On one hand, we want our children to grow up in maturity and independence, and on the other hand, we want them to stay as innocent children forever. When it comes to employment or education, we want our children to understand something of the way their unique gifts and abilities might be developed and expressed in a vocational career. But for Jesus to start this journey towards his calling, that must have seemed like quite a lot for Mary and Joseph to take in. But in today's world, we often just let society's expectations dictate our purpose. From career ambitions to the pressure of social media perfection, many struggle to align daily life with their faith. I think this is especially so in New Zealand with our tall poppy syndrome. Our culture has a strange relationship with people who think differently, right? On one hand, we praise ingenuity and number 8 wire thinking, and on the other hand, we cut down anyone who dares to think they're special in some way. The Christian life, though, is about listening for God's voice and following it as best we understand it. What could be more special, more unique, more open to being cut down than that? As a young person telling my family that I was pausing some other study to go to Bible college, this felt like a massive leap of faith. I had to verbalize that I felt like God was, well, maybe not talking to me, but in some real way leading me. And I was well aware that I was probably coming across as either crazy on one hand or proud on the other. These are some of the things we have to wrestle with as we follow Jesus. Who are we that the God of the universe would be interested in us? This is the mystery of the grace we live daily. Now, I look back at that decision as one of the best I ever made. And I wholeheartedly encourage young people to take a year out from study and do a deep dive into faith before heading off to university and pursuing other careers. But it's not just for young people. I firmly believe that some focused study for a season will do so much more for your faith than a year of Sundays. Why not consider enrolling in a course at Bible College yourself? Or EFM, there's lots of great courses out there that are manageable around your current workload. Secondly, this story highlights the real challenge we all face. Simply to stay with Jesus. You might think Mary and Joseph, his own parents, would be walking closely with Jesus. If not emotionally, spiritually, surely at the very least physically. But in this context, we can imagine something of a throng of people making their way from the village of Nazareth en masse up to Jerusalem. There would have been safety and support in numbers. Maybe there were as many as a few hundred making this journey for Passover together. So it's understandable. When it's time to go, maybe Mary and Joseph thought he was just up ahead somewhere, chatting with friends, other families, happily lost in the crowd, assuming they would all catch up at the end of the day. Well, as the old adage goes, to assume is to make an ass out of you and me. So they've lost him. And this scene is hard to imagine with our modern day helicopter parenting that likes to hover over our children at every activity and almost never lets them out of sight. But yep, the Mother of God lost the Son of God. This does make me feel better about my parenting. I remember a Sunday school teacher saying of our now 13-year-old Joshua, when he was maybe 2, 3, 4, she said, "He really doesn't have a homing beacon, does he?" I didn't actually have a clue what she meant, but she went on to explain that essentially he was very happy wandering off. He wasn't the kind of kid who was always clinging to our legs. He was the kind of child that would wander off in every direction, wander home sometimes on his own from church. And on more than one occasion, Joshua Pilbrow has been the name called over the intercom at Mitre 10 Mega, asking if he could please come to the help desk as his parents were waiting for him. Well, 3 days later, Mary and Joseph find him. And where is he? He's in the temple, sitting among the religious teachers, listening to them and asking questions. Mary and Joseph, understandably, are distressed. "Why have you done this to us? Your father and I have been anxiously searching everywhere for you." I love the way the NRSV puts it. It says, "Child, why have you treated us like this? Look, your father and I have been searching for you in great anxiety." Mary clearly still sees him as a child, as mothers often do. But remember, Jesus is 12 now. He's turning into a man. And what is more, that identity thing is kicking in, which must have been so hard for Mary and Joseph to understand. We see it clearly in the next verse. Jesus says, "Why were you searching for me? Did you not know that I must be in my Father's house?" What is he saying? He's saying the temple is his home. He's clinging now, claiming his divine sonship. He's saying to Mary, "You need to understand. This is my home. This is where I belong." He's saying that God the Father really is his Father in a way that maybe only Mary could truly understand at this point. Mary is undergoing the reorientation that knowing, believing Jesus' divine origins, she probably knew would happen at some point. But living through it, man, that must have been challenging. Mary from now on will have to constantly reorient her role in this new divinely blended family. Jesus has 2 dads. And in a way, that's the same thing that happens to us. As Jesus' divine origin, his divine nature is revealed to us, we too have to allow our understanding, our priorities, our future to be molded, to be rearranged, to be reshaped in the light of this truth. Jesus truly is the Son of God. One thing we would say to our kids sometimes when we were in a crowded situation at a fair or a carnival would be something like, if you can't see us, you've gone too far. You need to come back a bit. Check in with us regularly. So often we assume God is with us, has blessed our plans, and we merrily continue on our way, only to find far too late, like Mary and Joseph, that our assumption that Jesus was with us was wildly incorrect, and a massive backtrack is needed. One solution? Check in regularly. Stay close with Jesus. Maybe the best way to do that is through prayer, through reading of scripture, through worship. However you do it, just do it. Work on simple habits that you can make a part of your everyday routines. One of my favorites, I can't recommend enough, is using the Lectio 365 app. And it guides me through an audio version of a daily examine. It's a great thing just to put on as I go to bed each night. Is there a significant decision maybe you're processing right now? A plan you're pondering? Don't run off ahead. Pause. Devote some time dedicated to pray about it this week. And maybe, most importantly, take some time to listen, often to the small, quiet voice that might question our own thinking. Also take time to talk with other trusted, spirit-filled believers who can offer you another perspective maybe. Lastly, this passage subtly highlights the patience required in God's plans. Though Jesus exhibits remarkable wisdom at just 12 years old, he does not begin his public ministry until the age of 30. There's an 18-year gestation period. And this demonstrates the importance of preparation and waiting on God's timing. In our world of instant gratification, express deliveries, on-demand streaming, immediate feedback, waiting feels countercultural. Yet patience is often the crucible in which character is forged. Some of you will know the story of J.K. Rowling. It took her 5 years just to map out and get the storyline, write the first manuscript for the first book of Harry Potter. And even then, it was rejected 12 times before eventually finding that success we know it for. Or what about Dr. Seuss? It took him 10 years to get his first book published, and he had 27 publishers reject him along the way. Good things take time, as the Mainland cheese ad reminds us. We don't know a lot about the years between Jesus as a 12-year-old and the beginning of his ministry around the age 30, but we can assume he was continuing in the patterns and rhythms of his faith and his community, continuing in his study, and then at a particular time that was right for him to begin his ministry. Maybe you have a heart to serve your local community in some way, but maybe the opportunity just hasn't quite opened up. Maybe the timing isn't quite right, and there are lots of reasons why doors don't seem to open at the exact time we'd like them to. But that doesn't mean we can't still be proactive in preparing ourselves for a coming day when our ministry might be more visible. I learnt to swim, for example, when I was 7 or 8 years old. I've never been a competitive swimmer, but I've always been confident enough to swim out in the surf and rivers and have fun in the water. And I try and keep a base level of swimming ability. A few years ago, one of my children, Daniel, was playing on a stand-up paddleboard, just mucking about in not even knee-deep water at a beach when a gust of wind pushed the board out from shore, carrying him on it, and he quickly started drifting away into much, much deeper water. I had to quickly dive in the water and swim by now the 100 or so meters he had drifted to catch up with him, climb on board and bring him back to shore. And even though I only had just enough energy to swim that distance and catch him, in that moment I was so glad I had learnt to swim and kept an ability to swim confidently. So much of ministry is the same. It's what happens out of sight, years earlier, unspectacular, sometimes mundane, rhythms of life that occasionally need to be called upon in a very special moment or in a special season. It's too late to learn to swim in the moment of a crisis. And it's often too late to develop a deep, sustaining, centering faith in a time of personal crisis as well. Jesus had 18 years of some sort of formation. And I wonder if he ever felt impatient. You might feel that way too, but we can also take confidence that God honours the work we do in our own lives, out of sight, quietly, developing patterns of prayer, slowly, methodically learning the story of God revealed to us in Scripture, consistently maintaining and nurturing a supportive network of relationships and Christian community, creating character traits of humility, generosity, and kindness. Living this way truly is the kingdom life, no matter what role we have in our community. I think that is what Jesus was probably up to in those 18 years. And I think we can do it too. So, this new year, lean in to your divine purpose. Stay close to Jesus and embrace whatever season of formation you are in, knowing that with our God, nothing is wasted. Blessings. I hope you have an excellent end of the year, a very happy new year, and I look forward to seeing hopefully many of you in 2025.